And of course, this episode of XC Restoration is sponsored by Old School Auto Parts in Bayswater and Campbellfield. I've been using Old School for a few years now on the XW and XC build. And of course, I've been liaising with John. He runs the company. And what's great about that is he's had an eclectic range of cars himself, and he deals not just in the old Falcon stuff, but also Mustang, Holden, Monaro, all sorts of things. So I've been using John because he's honest, and if he hasn't had the part that I've wanted, he's got it very, very promptly. So thank you very much, John. He's donated an 11-inch clutch to this build. Welcome to part 11 of the XC restoration, and in this one I have no idea where I'm going to go with it. So what we're essentially doing is making this up as we go along. We have to do the work as I come across parts. I've bought some parts that I'm not even nearly ready for yet, and I've bought other ones that'll go straight in first up. I can't really do much because the first thing you put in are brake lines and wiring. Now I've got wiring and I've just got to sort through a little bit of that, but that's nothing. I enjoy doing that. And brake lines are the same. It's a pretty easy gig. The only difficulty is I haven't done underneath it yet. I haven't cleaned up underneath the car. I have some old remnants of oil leaks and dead nut to get rid of before I can recoat underneath. Once that's done, I can map out lines and it becomes really, really good fun. Then the underneath cleaning, or the cleaning of the undercarriage, is probably the most unpleasant job. But the more I look around this car, the luckier I feel about it. It's the worst surprise it's given me are a couple of bad repairs and a little bit of rust, which has all been cut up or cut out and new metal welded in. So I'm 120% confident there's no rust in this at all. And so I'd sooner have a car that has absolutely no rust and virtually no filler than a car that looks nice and shiny but it's really bogged up. And believe me, there are a stack of those. So whenever you look at a car, the best thing to do is to take a magnet with you, put a little bit of fabric over the end of it so it doesn't scratch up paint and so forth, and go around the thing. Some cars have a lot of lead around here and at the back, so you've got to also allow for that. But on the whole, this car won't be a show finish like you would find out of an expert panel shop. It'll be nice and white and shiny, and it'll have no rust and virtually no filler, and to me, that's a better car. Now, one of the reasons I'm not doing this in perhaps the order I should is because I have no room. You can see here, this is an absolute mess. Now, this garage used to be very, very tidy, and of course now it is a pigsty. And it's got lots of engine and interior and fuel bits, and there's a little starlet hiding behind there that's essentially a wardrobe full of XC and starlet parts. So I really want to get this together so I can alleviate some mess and tidy up and cull a lot of things. There's a lot. I've got two of a lot of things. I can give those away or sell them off or whatever. If you have a car the size of an XC or an XW in bits, you need 3 car spaces essentially. So I haven't got that here. I used to have 4 cars in a very tidy garage. Now I've got 2 cars, a shell, and a whole lot of mess. But we'll get through it. It's all good. Now, if you're going to take on your own paint job, you must seek the advice of a qualified professional. I've done it a few times now. I've spoken to a few spray painters, and I've got a little bit of advice here and there. I've picked up what I know, but at the end of the day, I'm not a painter. And so if you were to go to a painter with the advice I've given, or with the ideas that I've given, they'll probably say, guy on YouTube working out of his backyard and painting in acrylic, just ignore him and do as I say. And that's what you probably should do. Get the advice yourself. I'm going to show you what I know, and hopefully it turns out really, really well. And I'm aiming at a job that's a bit nicer than the XW, but it remains to be seen. But I'm pretty sure I can get there. I can't paint it yet though, and one of the reasons for that is it's too warm, and you don't want to paint acrylic paint in 30-degree heat. It'll dry too fast and it'll give a really chalky finish. It's best to paint that stuff at sort of 18 to 22 degrees. I like painting at about 20, about an average of that, and getting the humidity right below 50%, that's where it's good. Having said that, humidity is not really a big deal if you've got an airline full of air. Humidity is not a big deal if you have an airline full of water. That's the worst thing you can have, so you've got to have a vapor separator and all that sort of stuff, or a moisture separator. And so I've got to wait for the weather to cool down a little bit before I crack the gun out. I lucked out when it was a little bit cooler so I could do the priming, but at the moment it's just too warm. And so you have to sort of think about those things as well. Acrylic paints, you can paint in the warmer weather if you use a retarder, which will slow down the drying process. But the problem with retarders, of course, is keeping the paint wet means it'll probably meddle with any repairs underneath. and I don't want to do that. I prefer not to use a retarder. I didn't use any on, or I've never used one before on any car I've done, and I just wait for the right conditions. That way you can sort of get it done and be quite happy about it. This was floating around in the boot when I got the car, so I'm just going to go and take it down to get reconditioned. I might take the block of foam off, because I'll put a new dust seal on, but I'll take it down and get it recoated anyway. Right, well, I've taken the brake booster off to be reconditioned, and we have the master here, and that's probably reconditionable too, but you know what? I'm going to give that away, give it back to the supplier I use, and use a brand new one. I want all brand new stuff, so the master's out. I won't give it back though until I've taken this switch off, or I'll just see if the new one I get, because I haven't got it yet, has a switch. If that's the case, I can just get rid of the whole thing. So that's that. Now I've got a caliper here blown apart and one I'm about to pull apart, and this one looks pretty oily and horrible, and that one doesn't look so bad, but they're off the same car, so it's neither here nor there. Even if the brake job's temporary and you're going to upgrade the brakes later, don't be tempted to cut costs or corners with these things. Now, pads have a fair bit of meat on them, and they've been done well. They've got anti-squeal on the back, all that sort of stuff. Bin them. It's no good. Brake pads do go hard over time. These are conventional friction material. They may even have asbestos in them. It looks like they're very old ones. The new ones have sort of they're more like a metal king. They have more metal particles in them, so I don't need those. But things like this I always hang on to until I've got the brakes fitted on the car to make sure the ones that I get are exactly the same. And that goes for the hoses as well. Hoses go a bit manky and a bit, which one of these? One of them has a split in it somewhere, up toward the top. They're no good, but again, they've got the brackets that fit on the inner quarter, or the inner guards very, very well. And they're genuine ones, so I want to keep those brackets, and I'll keep the hose, so when I get the new ones I can check them against there. But once I've ascertained that I have the right parts, they can go in the bin as well. So that's the hoses. Things like the bleeders and even the banjo bolts, you can have plated if you want to. Good idea just to run a drill bit through the end of the bleeder, and if you look at this one here, that's all clagged up. So I always like to run a drill bit through the bleeder and through the part of the bottom there where the flange is, just so they're nice and clear and you get them back and they look brand new. So you know, that's another thing to look out for. And of course the slides, we don't get those plated, we'll just clean them right up on a Y wheel. The kit will come with new slide rubbers, these three things here, and of course you're good to go then. Now as far as the piston's concerned, this is probably reusable. It's dirty, but with a bit of Scotch-Brite that could well come up. But again, you know what? A new set of calipers or a reconditioned set of calipers is around $300 a pair. These pistons are like 20 bucks. So by the time you put new pistons in, new seal kit and new pads, it's still going to come to about 100 bucks all up for the pair. And if you do upgrade your brakes later on, you know full well that you're selling stuff that's still very much usable on the road. And you can get $100 for them. So this is the body. It's got to be all cleaned up. And so I'll put this to one side with its parts and we'll start undoing this one. Rightio, so we'll start undoing this now. Now, a couple of things you need to be aware of. Compressed air is really dangerous stuff. So you should always wear ear protection and eye protection in case anything goes wrong. The first thing we'll do, of course, we'll just pop these pads out. Whoops, dust, yuck, we don't want to breathe that in. And these have a little locating tongue on them there, little round raised sections that fit into the caliper there, so it centers them and keeps them in the right spot. And then of course we want to pop this piston out. Now these pistons can be really wedged in quite hard, so we've got the bleeder nipple closed and we're going to hit it with a bit of compressed air. Now what I've done is I wrapped some electrical tape, or masking tape, sorry, around there to get a pretty good seal if I can. I might need more. And I've just bent the end of it over so I can just unravel it when I'm finished, because this stuff has a way of sticking together and you can't get it off. Now, what we can do is we can just fill it with compressed air and just pop the piston out and it'll hit that car there. Not a bad idea, just chuck a block of wood in and let it out progressively. After you finish with a block of wood, then you'll get a feel for how easily the piston's going to come out, and it won't give you any nasty surprises. So I'm just going to pop that in there. And you can, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, she shot out quicker than I thought she would. But that's why you want to have a block of wood there, so it doesn't give you a nasty fright. And not just that, there is brake fluid in there a little bit. I've drained it as best I can out here, but I don't want to mist of brake fluid in the air. I don't want to inhale it. And I also have a car behind me, which of course I've been starting to paint. So I'm just going to take that out. Whoops. I'll just mop that up. And this piston's another one which doesn't look too bad at all, actually. Not bad at all. This came out a lot more easily than the other one, I might add. Just mop all that up, all that residual fluid. Now another thing, I'm using gloves of course, and they're dirty, which doesn't matter while I'm disassembling this thing, but when I go to rebuild this caliper, I need my gloves to be squeaky clean because I don't want to contaminate anything in there. That fluid is terrible. I drained what I could out of there, but there's still quite a bit there. So I'll just soak that up. Might have a look at this piston. Might be able to reuse them, but I really don't want to. I'd send just buy new ones. There we go. Okay. And then of course we can just pop that dust seal out. All that does is fit snugly against the piston, so no dust and muck and dirt and that sort of thing can get in. And then of course we can see the inside. I hope you can see in there. Of course we can just get these multis and just pull that spring out. Like that. Flick around and do the other one. This one might be a bit harder to get out because I can't, I've got nothing to lever against. Come on old thing, come to Papa. There we go. All good. Now a couple of split pins, one here on the other side, and it'll release these slides. I'm just going to clean them up as best I can first. Really intelligent doing that with your paint gun apart next to it, but this is so dodgy. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, we'll just give that a little bit of a squirt with some penetrating oil. And while we do that, we can just get this little split pin and give him a smack on the bum and see if he'll come out the other way. Okay. There we go. Oh, come on, look at that. Again, we bin split pins, we don't bother with them, we put them straight in the bin because we don't want to use used ones or old ones. I need a new vise badly. And then we can figure out how to get this out. Might need some vices, see if I can get it with them. The muck on here that stops it sliding properly will also affect braking performance, so we have to keep that in mind as well. Ruth, that is stuck well. Now if you do have to resort to vice grips and butchery like this to get the thing spinning, you can always, once we get this pin out, we can just clean up with a file so it doesn't look so bad. Haven't done very well with this one, guys. Made a bit of a mess with it, but you know what, I might even have to buy new slides. Here we go. Gosh, that's one of the toughest ones I've had to remove. Wow, that is bad. You can see all the rusty sort of stuff on it. Let's get a rag and I'll have to file this off just to make it look a bit smarter. But we can get that off. One thing I actually forgot to mention is when we take these split pins out, just to shoot a bit of stuff down there, because this is a blind hole, you can't get to the other side to knock the pin out, which is a shame, but hopefully in doing that it might make it easy to get this one out as well. So I'll check these pistons out. I'm going to give a toss whether I have to buy new ones. They're very reasonable. I've just cleaned a bit of it there, which is all good. Brake clean, of course, it's just a solvent based thing designed for brakes. You can spend $10 a can on this. I think this is like $2 from the reject shop or something, but whatever the case, it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to use a bit of Scotch-Brite. If you use Scotch-Brite on sealing surfaces, always go round like this. Don't go this way because you don't want to create tracks for the fluid to leak out from. But I'm just going to go gently. This actually looks, you can see a little bit of wear there where it's shiny. I'll see if that, now obviously I'm going to clean them up a little bit better than that, but all things considered, that looks pretty good. There's a few marks still, hang on a second. I'm just using a dirty old bit of Scotch-Brite. So there is some wear there where it's all shiny, but you know, on the whole that isn't too bad. I'll show it to Peter at the brake place, but and if he says, oh look, you know, they're 18 bucks each, I'll just chuck some new ones in. If he says these are rare ones, which I can't see him saying, they're 180 bucks each, well then I won't bother. But really with your brakes, it should be a no expense spared gig. I reckon that's pretty good. I'll just give the next one a clean now. This one's got pitting around it, so they're both trash. As far as I'm concerned, I'll get a pair of new ones. Time for a bit of humble pie. I was wrong about these brackets. I thought you could separate them from the hose, but you can't with these. The XW you could, and so I ended up using the original ones again. They're getting them plated, but these are all part of the hose, so I'll just have to get new hoses that are identical to this in every respect, I guess. Yum. Okay. So here's our caliper, stripped down. I've still got to take a little bleed nipple out, but it doesn't matter. Just wanted to show you in here. Hopefully you can see all that built up muck in there, and that is a sign of a really, really neglected brake system. So all that has to be cleaned out. I'll take it to a parts wash and I'll do it all properly. But that is unacceptable to see that sort of stuff in there. And it's also dirty everywhere else. So I'll take that out, give it a good clean up in a parts wash, and then I'll just pack that up. I'll rebuild the brakes later. Well, I'm starting to think about some of the other parts I'm going to need reasonably soon after the car's painted. Of course, this was from Paul Harker. It was very, very kind of him to give me this. It's a manual pedal box. So I'm just going to blow it apart, put some new sort of bushings and that sort of thing in. A little bit wobbly, but it doesn't matter, we can fix that. And of course he gave it to me with a brake pedal switch as well, though I do have another one. I'll pull it apart first and then I'll sort of paint it, then put it back together with the new bushes and put some pedal pads on. Haven't got those parts yet. This one here, the accelerator pedal, and this is the same as the one I used in the XW. I might turn it around, it's better if you put it like that. These I don't know if these had bushes in them before, I think they did, but they're all flogged out. I might put in a split plastic type. I did that in the XW and it made it move very nicely. The pedal's in good condition, but I'm not going to use it. It's one of those things, it's like, you know, when you get a new computer you want a new keyboard. I want a new steering wheel, I want a new gear knob and pedal facings, so these are quite easy to take off. There is a spring there and I can just sort of take that out. Sort of. And I have got a new screw for this. I ended up with two of them for the XW. And of course I only used one, and they have a bit of Loctite on them, which is why I'm having a job getting this out. Be a bit hard. I might take the spring off first. That might free up a little bit of movement. Just get it out. Worst comes to worst, I'll just break this off. Yeah, which way am I going? Going this way. I've only got to just start it moving, and there we go, and that'll come off. And I won't throw it, I'll just stick it in a bag. I've got a few old Falcon parts, just on the off chance I lose the screw or whatever. But I want this car. It's an old car. That's where the Loctite is. You can see from the factory they put it on that the new ones are the same. But I want this car, even though it's old, to be like a new car to drive. So I'm going to change a few things with its specifications. I'm going to make it a little bit more go-in than it would have been, and you know, make it feel lighter to drive. Because the one I had some years ago was an automatic 351. It just felt a little bit sluggish. But I want this to feel, I want to sit nice and high in it and have all this new stuff around me and make it feel a bit more perky. So of course the other thing before I paint this, I'll just knock that off. That's just like a bonnet stop sort of thing there. And then I'll just give it a lick of paint and put some new bushes in. And I can set this adjustment later when it's in the car. And it's pretty agricultural the way they've done this. They've just sort of welded a nut onto that rod. So manufacturing now is a lot more strict and so forth than that. Unless somebody else has done that. That's possible it was done later. It looks very, very how you're going. In fact, I'm almost tempted to redo that. No, it doesn't matter. It can stay there for now. So, I'm not even going to tag that. I've bagged it, but I know exactly what it is the moment I look at it. Alright, here we go. There's a little E-clip. Just pry it off. That whole shaft will pop out. And I'll just take these bushes off. These aren't bad, but put new ones on. So, I think they're like $5 each or something. They're quite cheap, so. Does that come off? There's a plastic thing now. I don't know if that comes off. Oh yeah, that comes off too. So there's our brake. And the clutch is missing the inner one, but not the outer one. And so the clutch is under a lot of duress because the travel on it's all the way to the floor when you're using it. So it's a very different baby to what a brake pedal is. These engine mount plates originally looked pretty terrible, but they've got 2 coats of core on them now. They'll do fine. There you go. They're all good to go, ready to bolt in. We've already spoken about that for the charcoal canister. That's the plenum chamber cover, which was all manky and horrible under there. Still looks manky and horrible there, but I can fix that side. That's the upper part, and that's a sort of bolt with a bit of seal around it, a bit of mastic around it. Battery tray. Now this wasn't in very good condition, a little bit scaly. Jason gave me this off his XB, and it's going to be fine. Look, it's pitted and so forth. I cleaned all the rust off that I could. There was only a few stains in there. Gave it a couple of coats of 415. And of course the bracket was the same. I welded a little patch in there because it was a bit thin in this area here. But of course that goes up against the firewall, so you never see it. Or the inner guard, so you can't see it. These sorts of things, like some of the parts I put in the XW, are really easy to replace. That's a matter of undoing 4 bolts and you've got a new one in, but I didn't get the original one with the car. If I find a better one in the meantime, you know what, I'll grab it, but this will do for now. Just thinking about paint and other bits and pieces I have to get. In terms of paint colour or engine colour, so I'm going to do this colour. This is different from the rattle can blue. You get the light Ford blue in the rattle can. These are off a big block, a 390. I picked these up. They're lovely covers for that engine, but I'm not ready to do anything with it yet. And so I'll get it matched to that. Getting this ready to cut out. Now I view myself as reasonably competent with cars, but one of the things I did, these were seized in, I couldn't get them out. And so I've drilled it out to knock the head off to get the plate off. I think I'm out of focus a bit here, but I've left the where the drill bit was, which has left a nice centered sort of position for the drill to go through. Now on this side I was stupid, and when I cleaned off paint and rust and everything, I flattened them down, which means I have to get these dead center, because if I don't get them dead center, these holes, I've got one there and I've just started one there, that means I'm screwed, because the plate is sort of captive behind there, and so in getting that dead center it means I can re-tap a 5/16 thread through it, but I have to be right in the middle, and that was a really silly mistake. I'm coming up with little faults I've got to fill on the body, but in the meantime I'm sort of, what's that? In the meantime I'm fixing these, and I probably should have had this all sorted before I primed it, but I want to cover up all that bare metal. So I'm just running a 5/16 coarse tap through here. I've got them nice and central. So I know we're good to go, but if I want to make sure this is all dead clear. Wrong type of bolt but the same thread. So that's cool. That was actually, whoa, that actually stressed me a bit, that thing. Well, I've got a roll of masking tape and I'm just blocking up these holes so that I can paint behind the dashboard and without any of it sort of bleeding through. It doesn't really matter if it does, I suppose, there's already paint in here anyway. But I want to paint behind the dash, in the boot and under the front guards, or in there. And I bought a roll of masking paper, the proper stuff, and my brother's got it because he wants to use it to make templates for the dynamite he's putting in his Mustang, and he's not there at the moment so I can't get it. So I'm going to do the ultimate dodgy backyard no-no and use newspaper. And if you're going to paint something, don't mask with newspaper because paint can bleed through it. But where I'm going to paint on this, if the paint does bleed through, it doesn't matter that much. So I've got to block up all these little holes, which is a nuisance because I've got to take it all off again. And then when I paint the engine bay, I've got to block it from the other side. But if you do your prep like this, it always looks better. And so far, I'm pretty happy with this car in terms of how it's turning out. But I should have got wider tape actually, this stuff's too thin. With masking tape too, this is stuff from a proper auto paint shop. Not the cheap, you know, $1 roll from the hardware shop. This is only $2 a roll, and it seals really well and it doesn't lift paint when you take it off. It's really, really good stuff. So I'm going to continue doing this, I'll press on with it. And it's 3 o'clock I think, and so I want to get this done. I want to get those things done with 2 coats of paint today, so I'm sort of under the pump a bit, so I'll keep going and I'll turn this off. So I painted a few parts. There's the top of the pedal box there, there's some pedals, accelerator linkage, not finished painting those yet. Painted under here, you can't really see that very well but the welder's sort of parked there, but painted all under there. This is a bit rough as guts in here actually, I wasn't too phased about it, but that's the firewall done. So now I can stick the insulation in and, you know, just make a start at sort of putting a few bits and pieces together, although I've got to paint the car before I do that. So even as far as, I've done that little steering column bracket there, that's just hanging there to dry. In the boot and behind here, there's going to be like a boot insulation panel here, and I just didn't want any white visible from inside the boot because the boot's black on this car. And the boot itself, a bit disappointed with how some of this turned out actually. I might redo it. I was really overzealous with the XWs, but I just don't know if I'll do the same sort of thing with this car. Given that it's all covered up, you know, the parcel tray and all this sort of stuff is all covered up, so I went overboard with the XW. With this one, because I left the insulation in, it was never going to look particularly tidy, but it gives it a more finished off look, I think. So that's all done, under here's done. Now I've just got to get ready to paint the car, really. A few repairs, you know, I've come across a few repairs I want to do, so I have to do them before I make a start. So there you go. Well, the weather's too warm for painting, so I've been sourcing a few more parts here. Here's our brand new master cylinder. I've got the booster being reconditioned at the moment, I'll show you that after. And it comes with the switch there, so I can just discard the other one. Clutch master, of course. This is it's a pedal set, if you like, with the brake and the clutch. And the bush is here to overhaul the pedal box. New accelerator pedal here, which comes with the spring and a screw, and also a new old stock clutch, courtesy of John at Old School Auto Parts in Bayswater, so that's very, very good of him. And also from John is this lovely single rail gear bag down there. Now, cast iron bell housing, which is the original type. Now John thought this might have been from an XD or something, just given the type of wiring loom it has. It looks to me that it has, because it has a speedo transducer and not a cable there. Somebody shortened the shifter and it selects all gears well, but this housing here looks like it might be a bit sus, so I might have to change that over. Now, judging by the numbers, it is an original 351 gearbox. It's 0503888. I think 009 was 4.1, 4.9. But I actually thought the V8s and the 6s were different, and the V8s had a healthier, or a thicker, I should say, countershaft. But if those numbers are true to this gearbox and the extension housing hasn't been changed, it looks at face value to be from a 5.8 litre XD Falcon. So We'll pop the top off and have a look and see what the gears look like. We'll just see what the insides reveal. I'm not taking this off in the order I should, but got a bit of wind up today. It was supposed to be 30 and it wound up being about 36. But I've got to wait for the weather to cool down before I can take to this car with a paint gun, because otherwise it'll just dry it too quickly. Alright. I don't know if you can see in there. Let's have a bit of a closer look. I'll try and zoom in a bit. It's a bit hard with the camera here, but you can see where are we? Neutral. That's reverse. First, second, third, and fourth. And from what I can see down there, there's no real damage. It's all looking very, very healthy. And I'm looking down onto the counter shaft as I turn that, or the lay shaft if you prefer, and that all looks pretty good too. But manuals freak me out a bit. I've overhauled a couple of them. Autos I'm very comfortable with. Manuals I always find a little bit more daunting, which is the opposite to how most people find it actually. But that's a real win. You know, I'm very, very happy with this. That's good. I might just have to only get a little shifter housing for it, and the rest of it looks really good. Awesome. So I've sold off one or two bits and pieces out of the garage to finance a few extra parts for the car, and of course the first ones were these two front guards, which were original ones to the car, and you can see they've deleted the engine identification badges. The only ones that were deleted, I think, XC's always had 3.3, 4.1, 4.9 and 5.8 litre badges on them. I think, I could be wrong with this, that the updated version didn't have a 3.3 badge, they were just blank, I'm not sure, but people seem to like that blank look, which isn't what I'm chasing for this car. I want a stock look, so those are going to get ground back. They're pretty average anyway, and I might paint strip this because it's all sort of scratched up. I'll take them out, grind the welds back, the same as these ones, and just re-drill them there for the trims, which I want putting back. This guard has a dent along here, which is a bummer because those are the dents that the sunlight catches and everyone can see when you do a bad job fixing them. Otherwise, it's a little sort of dimple there, but it's really good. It's an excellent guard. I'll just flick it around. It's heavy. That isn't such a bad weld. That's quite good. But yeah, nice and solid in there. So I'll pour 15 sort of down to there, and this all looks really good. It's an excellent guard. Ray really did me a favour keeping that for me. He's had them since August last year. We're now in March, and he's kept them for me, which is very kind of him. So I've got that one. This one's even better from what I can see of it. You know, again, you know, one or two tiny little dents and deleted badges, which I'll dig out. But also these, which I've just mentioned, that's all got to come out, be ground out and re-drilled. And of course, this is the same sort of story. Lovely and clean. Looks like there's been a couple of very small rust spots there, but this bloke did the right thing and just welded them up. And that's all he needs to do with that. Pour 15, the badge delete holes I'll redo. And this has also had the antenna deleted with a piece of metal. Might pull that out, I think, and redo it. Some of the guards, the rear ones, this one's been fiddled with here as well, but they've been sort of rolled back, and that all has to be straightened as well. So there's that. And this, of course, is where things get ugly. Now, Ray said this was an absolutely brilliant bonnet, and look, it's a fairly good one, but it certainly isn't brilliant. And you can see the sort of marks with the grinder they've done. That's a grinding disc by the look of it. So this one's fairly knackered in that it has dried up filler that's falling out. That's all filler, that's got to come out. I'm not wrapped with that. Might be a bit above my skill level, but I'm pretty sure I can make good with it. One or two little holes, couple of little pinholes along there, and it's dented. So I need to see what's underneath all this paint, and that's all sort of in it. There's more filler there, not wrapped with this I must say. Cracked filler, not great. So it's all going to have to be stripped back. That's all craze or crow's footed. So that's, pardon me, all got to come off as well. All up here. This thing has to go back to bare metal and then have the bare metal really cleaned up properly. I'll just turn it around and show you the other side. It's been painted in black. I don't know if it's enamel or whether it's just a satin acrylic, I'm not sure. Looks like there's little bits of surface rust here and there. So I need to take all this off and have a good look as well. Still got these factory little divots here for the front moulding, and it hasn't been drilled for the FORD, which is good because I'm going to have this look like an update car. The skin's pulled away from the frame. I need to get in here, clean all that up in there, pour 15, and I'll use the seam seal if I don't change the skin, which I'm telling you now I won't, just to re-adhere the skin to the frame, just so it hasn't got that empty tin can sound when you open and close it. So, frame look, essentially the frame's great. If there's not too many hidden surprises under here, this bonnet's a win, particularly what I paid for it. Ray really looked after me with the price of this stuff. So essentially I'm pretty happy. And of course I also bought some paint, and of course there's 6 litres of Wimbledon white in here, and of course I don't want to bore everyone with the colour, but I particularly like it, so I bought 6 litres of that. There's 12 litres of thinner here, which isn't enough, but I've got more here, so it's all good. And what's interesting about this actually is it's $26.95 for 4 litres of GP, which is just the general purpose stuff. But if you take your old can in, it's $16 for 4 litres. It's only $4 a litre, which is really good. I've also bought this, a couple of tins of the sound deadener, which is the stuff underneath the car, and of course you apply it with these guns, and they're cheap as well. I've had to use this on the XW, and it just sort of screws in there, and you use it to spray on. If it doesn't get started quickly, and sometimes they don't, they have trouble drawing, you can throw a bit of terps in there, shake it up, and off you go. So I bought that, which I'm very happy with. And this stuff all came from Milsom's Auto Paints in Fernsbury Gully on Burwood Highway. It's a family-owned business. They're very kind people, and they've got a tremendous range there, and they're a lot cheaper than the competition. So that's where I go. They've thrown in a couple of steering sticks, and there's a couple of tack cloths in there as well, and of course we need those to get rid of any dust on it. So you wipe your car down with Prepsol to get rid of any wax and grease, then a quick wipe with this and it gets rid of any dust and sort of foreign stuff. So very happy indeed with that little bounty. So we're now, unfortunately, it's getting expensive now, so we're now up to $7,000, just under, and we've pretty much now got a complete car in bits. So worst case scenario, I've done the sums, is going to be another 12, which will make 19. At the best, it's going to be another 10. So if I can get out of this with a brand new XC Falcon for 17, that's probably not too bad. Not spending any more money now though, because it's Susie and my anniversary, and we're going to go and do a few things together. A lot of people have been inquiring where I got my plating done, because it was very cheap. If you remember, it was sort of up to here with at least 1,000 pieces. It must have been more, I think. And it was only $65. I think it was underquoted, to be honest, but it was Warner's Metro Welding in Bayswater on Power Road, and they've charged me a lot more than that in the past, and I don't know why it was so reasonable this time, but I was very happy with the price. So I'm going to go back again. I've gone there before and they've charged more, I think I mentioned that, but I'm just going to throw in a whole lot of these Cleveland engine bolts, which look, they look terrible or silly. I'll just use this. I've got a stainless kit here, but if I can use the original fasteners, then I will. And there's like sunk bolts, and might as well. I won't do any of the internal bolts, but I also have to get the bonnet latch and the spring and that little bonnet tick thing that hangs down from Ray, because I forgot to get it. And then I can send this lot off, and I've also got to do those wiper arms. I don't know if you can see that, but I've got to figure out these plastic clips, how they work. The XW has sort of bent over metal tangs, which I could refit, but this looks a little bit different. Got a couple of scuttle panels here. This is one from Ray, and it's full of humidity bubbles, and it looks like it was off that blue car the doors were from, and this one is rusted around here and sort of in here as well. And so I'm not going to use that. Now this is one Jason gave me off his XB donor car, which looks absolutely dreadful, but it's straight. So I'm going to go with this one, although it is different in this area here. I've got a message. It is different in this area here, so I need to figure out why they're different. So that one would be XC, this is XB, so maybe I can't use it, I don't know. But at the end of the day, that's going to have to be media blasted, so I'll take that in with the bonnet hinges, which are absolutely manky, and they've got paint peeling, and those things to strip back are hell by hand. So also found this in the box of goodies. That's been sitting in this garage for about 10 years, never been used, or at least I haven't used it. It came on a manifold board or something, I don't know, I can't remember. But that'll do with this Holley carburetor. Now this Holley is a 600. It's the one that was originally on the Galaxy's spare motor, and my brother kitted it, so I might run the camshaft in on the engine stand with that adapter before I get the thermoquad sorted.
Like, it's just, I'm giving attention to Herbie and Cleo doesn't like it, so she puts her bum in his face and she's like, look at me, look at me.
This is great, look at this, rattle can paint job. Cleo! Rattle can paint job, and we've got rust through there. Now, I wouldn't mind betting that the skin's rusted out as well, because on the flip side of that we've got filler. Now I can fix that, I can cut it out and put a new piece in, but I might look for another bonnet. This is all got holes in it here too. I don't know, I might try and fix it. I think what I'll do first is just take all this rotten paint off. The bonnet doesn't look bad though. But, you know, just the surface stuff's not bad, I don't mind that. But I can cut that out and put a piece in, but I wouldn't mind betting that the skin underneath is affected as well. Look at those dogs. Too many dogs. Yeah, I'm not loving this. I'm just going to have to take all that paint off and have a good look. Because among other things, it might be absolutely gone. I'll see. I've seen a lot worse. But even down in here, there's a big extrusion of filler. So, it looks bad, but it might not be that bad. In fact, it might be pretty good. Just whenever I see this paint and little bubbles underneath it, I always get a bit dubious. Whatever the case, we're going to have to do some surgery before we even make a formal decision what we're going to do with it. I'm just throwing some Pour 15 around where there was a little bit of surface rust. And once I've done that and it's gone off, I'll give it a second coat, and also maybe scratch that up and do a bit in there. But then I can sort of put these guards away. I'm not going to paint these guards or do anything with them until the spring, because I can't do anything on the shell at the moment. The weather's too warm and I really want to get the shell painted so I can start assembling the car. I'm just taking this rear axle out. It's not put in properly. That's not going like the camera. There's a bit of wing there. The guy that had it before was mounted the shocker plate the wrong way, so I don't know if he intended for the shockers to, for the top mounts to go into the fuel tank or not, but it's all nice and loose, so that's cool. I'm taking this out the wrong way. I normally take these out with the leaf springs attached to them, but Jason, the friend of mine with the XW and the XB, is coming over tomorrow, and I've given this to him. He wanted a little bit of slip for his XB, and I bought another rear axle. I should have bought a 9-inch, but with my wonderful wife being as tolerant as she is, there are some things she wanted and have to do some work around the house, so I've bought another Borg Warner, and the one I bought's out of a later Falcon. I think it's a 4-pinion, which is really good, but it's a disc brake limited slip, and I want a disc brake more than anything, and so I haven't got that yet, haven't picked it up yet. So what this means is that I might have to move the car around, particularly as I need to paint it, but I can't paint anything yet because the weather's too warm, so I'm just sort of mucking around with these parts. And so I'll take this little guy out, and you know, when I get the other one I can either do it, I've got to paint all under here first, or at least deaden it under here. So it's sort of afforded me a little bit of time, but after I've done that, we've got it painted, then I can take the springs out and I can put all new bushes in and all this sort of stuff. So this all come out like, oh, that's loud. These bushes are shot as to be expected, so I'll put new ones in, and I'll just spin this axle around and remove it. Really stupid way of doing this, but I didn't want to take the springs out yet. And it just means that well, I can fiddle around later with it. With the other one, if I need to move the car around. The problem is it's still full of oil, so I didn't want to stick it on a trestle, and so I need the engine crane to lift it all up with the springs on and flick it around and drain the oil. I couldn't be bothered doing any of that, so I've done it this way, which is really unconventional. But it's sort of a means to an end, so that I can give this to old Jason when he turns up. And it's just another thing out of this garage, because there's absolutely no room whatsoever. So there we go. So that is the end of the 11th chapter on the XC, and I wanted to get far more done. I wanted some paint on the car and that sort of thing, and all this sort of stuff by the end of this video, but of course I can't because of the temperature. And as I mentioned before, I don't want to use a retarder in the paint because I don't want it messing around with any repairs underneath, that sort of thing, even though there's not that many of them. I'll just wait for the weather to cool down a bit. But I really wanted to talk about some of the parts that are going into this car. Of course, there's a raft of different rear end combinations and gearbox combinations. I was fortunate, got an XD 351 gearbox, correct for the car, or correct for the era of car. And also the 4-pinion rear end, which is exactly the same as the XDs used in the 5.8 litre cars as well. Should have a 9-inch. The XW I want to get a 9-inch for eventually. The XC eventually, if I find a cheap one. I had one and I sold it cheap, and all these sorts of things come up and you sort of regret them. So hope you enjoyed this video. It's more parts related again, I suppose, but the good thing with that is, of course, once it's painted we can just sort of steam ahead and put the thing together. So drive safely, enjoy your classic, and I'll see you later. Ta-da!